We should all say something. Somebody should say something. I'm having a little problem because I have too many screens. Too many screens.
I'm Batman.
You know, it's actually curious. In one of the logic books that I use, the topic of science comes up.
The topic of science in logic?
Yep.
A logic book. Okay, so anyway, so we were going to fight about is and not, but also scientism again. So this is Scientism 103. So, and Scott is our moderator today.
Yeah, I'm going to try to be the voice of reason, a calming influence in the storm of dialogue and interlocution.
Yeah, so that we don't attack each other like Smokey and Praise.
Actually, I have two questions I want to start with.
You fucking trash clown. Well, okay, go ahead.
I would like each of you right now for the first question to define what scientism is very briefly, and also give a brief sentence or two on why you either reject or accept scientism. Since it's your show, would you start us out, Speed, with your definition and your reason for accepting? Yes.
Well, you really put me in the spot. I can't even spell it.
Okay.
Did I spell it right? Okay.
Duly noted, and our listeners who are listening live, thank you very much for being here, you five people, and people who are reviewing this video for its intellectual value will know that you can't spell scientism, and I don't know that that helps or hurts your case, but what is scientism and why do you support it, Speed?
All things can be understood in principle with science. Okay, can be understood in principle with science. So that means that all things can be basically detailed, analyzed, reduced into, some sort of science, like human morality. Everything can be basically reduced to science. All things, okay? Things. Yep, things like humans. Humans and basically behaviors that humans get up to, that sort of thing.
And why do you accept this scientism as you define it?
Why do I accept it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because we are organisms, and therefore biology is the domain where you would start to study human beings. And inside of biology, more important to human beings, I think, would be the sub-biological field of neuroscience. And neuroscience is where you can understand why we basically do a lot of the things that we do, or why we fail to do a lot of the things we do. And I think essentially we could use that to determine or basically inform us about why we behave in the moral fashion that we behave.
Okay, this was supposed to be a short, synopsis of why you support it, but that's fine.
I support it because there are a lot of things about the human brain that we know right now and that we can know in the future that will have a very big effect on basically how we teach our children and how we define certain things, or how we understand a lot of moral problems that we have between us, that sort of thing. So anyway, can be understood. Okay. So things that can be understood. Humans are a thing. They can be understood in terms of science. So,
okay.
Basically.
Immutable, what is your definition of science? And why do you? I suppose you reject. I'm sorry. What's your definition of scientism, and why
Right.
do you reject it?
So my view of scientism and the conventional view that scientism has typically been associated with is that scientism is the view that all knowledge can be derived using science and scientific methodology. Um, and the reason I reject that particular notion is, to me at least, there appears to be a lack of internal consistency within the type of claim, within the type of claim that it's making, that all things can be understood to uh, can be reducible and essentially to scientific concepts and theories. But also, I think if you truly hold to that position, you encounter paradoxes that otherwise you wouldn't encounter. For instance, conventionally, we notice the existence of categories. We distinguish things based upon various properties they have, based upon either their concept or
Can I back you up, immutable?
sure.
When you said all knowledge can be what?
Oh, all knowledge can be derived, all knowledge can be derived or attained through scientific methodology.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Now,
Yeah, one of the reasons I rejected, and probably one of the stronger ones, is that it truly accepting this claim and taking it seriously means that you dissolve the notion of categories and you dissolve the notion of it. It just seems to break down a lot of some of the intuitions we have about the world and what accounts as an explanation for certain things.
Cam, curious as to why you're talking about categories, I guess.
Well,
Can you give an example
of a category?
Well, a category that basically scientism screws up. Like, why is scientism a problem for what categories? What categories are you talking about?
So, I mean, let's take a category such as something like a normative statement, like a bachelor is an unmarried man, or something like that.
Ah!
Oh no, you said it. Oh fuck.
I hate that example. Okay, but go ahead. It's not nothing against you. I've just heard it so many times that my whole body reacts against it.
Wait a minute,
I apologize, immutable, for interrupting you.
Immutable, that's an analytic statement. A normative statement would be shoulds and oughts and things like that, right? Normative?
I mean, let's take a statement that comes like from first order propositional logic, right? Like a bachelor is an unmarried man.
Okay, I think that's more
propositional and analytic logic.
Okay.
Right.
It's not normative, I don't think.
Well, for the norm, we could say something like killing is wrong.
Okay, killing is wrong.
Right. That would be an example of a norm.
Okay, killing is wrong.
Yeah, under some underlying metaethical theory.
Okay. Okay, so that's a category, a normative thing. So
right.
That's an example of a category. Okay, what's the other categories?
But you could also think of a category as being something more so, I guess, like analytic, right? Or something that's propositional in nature, right? Like the notion of a bachelor being an unmarried man. And the reason that a bachelor is an unmarried man is because of how the notion of one is entailed within the other. The truth of A necessarily entails the truth of B.
Okay.
Right. And those seem to be different types of categories. A norm in this case, in this case, even though we're expressing a norm as an is statement, you can think about the general structure of most ethical theories, like utilitarianism, to adopt structures that are more so ought, right? Like, for instance, if you're utilitarian, you're going to say something to the effect of, we should try to feed as many people as possible, or something like that. That's what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And when we're talking about a statement like a bachelor is an unmarried man, or another statement or other statements that are similar within their conceptual context, they're expressing values of is. They're expressing a relational property between two, essentially between two abstract objects that we've named, right? The notion of a bachelor and an unmarried man, and the truth value underlying that is true by virtue of the relation of the two properties. It isn't something that can be reduced to an ought.
Okay. Okay, so backing up here a little bit before we get to is and ought, because I have a problem with an is can't be derived from an ought. And mostly because I'm a contrarian son of a bitch. And, I'm a crabby old man. Get off my fucking lawn. But back here, look at our two definitions. Okay, all things can be understood. And you have all knowledge can be derived or attained. Okay, so knowledge we have not defined. Things, we pretty much know what those are, right? And we pretty much know what understanding things are, right? But then when you entered all knowledge, that's where I'm saying you're building the straw man of scientism that I do not adhere to, because I adhere to this one up here. You see that?
I mean, not to get too meta within the stream, right? But there is a sense in which you can talk about knowledge of knowledge, right? How it is we know things about knowledge, or how it is we understand the structure of knowledge, right? Among which science is one of those types of things. Science is a way of understanding and knowing specific aspects of the world, right? I mean, I don't think that's a controversial statement necessarily.
Right, and we are one of those aspects of the world, or we are one of those things in the world. And I say that we can understand ourselves basically by science, with science.
Yeah, I mean,
but you're going kind of meta here, where you're saying that all knowledge can be derived or attained with science. All knowledge, like for instance, knowledge of me riding a bike. I don't think science is going to help me with that.
That's the conventional claim of scientism.
I don't care about conventions. I told you that I may have a slightly different take on it. I think that is a straw man claim of scientism. Who in the hell would claim you could learn to ride a bike with science? I mean, we can,
scientists would.
Do you have an example of a human being that's alive, contemporary philosopher today, that subscribes to that idea?
No, because the notion of logical positivism and scientism was mostly an idea that was adopted prior to the 1920s, when it was then abolished.
And you believe that they thought that they could learn how to ride a bike with science?
During the Renaissance era, during the time where science was very much so thriving and being understood, a lot of people, a lot of philosophers, and a lot of scientists were of the persuasion that all things, all facts about the world, and all forms of knowledge could be derived using scientific methodologies.
I think what logical positivists were saying is that if you can't empirically verify something, that you may as well not consider. So they were pushing back on metaphysics primarily. I don't think logical positivism is the same as scientism. I'm not sure. I think
you make the case that logical positivism is partially what's responsible, or what's been closely affiliated with the notion of scientism.
Okay, so all knowledge can be derived or attained from science. Let's look up scientism. And the Wikipedia entry on it, I thought, was
So you're drawing a circle around things. You're saying all things can be understood via science.
Right. And the world
are
consists
those,
of. Go ahead.
are those some of those things abstract concepts as well?
Yeah. Well, abstract concepts are not things, but they don't actually exist. So
Right.
we're
Well, I'm
not
just
worried.
wondering how close together your definitions, and I know these are both your understandings of of scientism.
Yeah.
I have not looked at a article lately that describes scientism. I haven't looked at a book. I'm just trying to get your understanding of what those words mean. I don't see that they're that far apart, though.
Well, the wiki says scientism is a promotion of science as the best or only objective means by which society should determine normative and epistemological values. The term scientism is generally used critically, implying an unwarranted application of science in situations considered not amenable to application of the scientific method or similar scientific standards. Now, so it's used as
It's a prerogative. A derogative.
Derogative, yeah. Right off the bat, which means that somebody's built a straw man of basically anybody that. Okay, pro-scientism. Let's take a look and see if we can.
I don't think necessarily it's
Mario Bunge.
I don't think necessarily it's trying to badmouth people that held this position. I think it's trying to give a critique of.
No, that's what it says right at the top of the article, that it's used as a derogative statement, basically. So
that's the AAAF page. Is that from the American Association for the Advancement of Science?
Wikipedia.
It's the wiki. Okay.
Yeah, I should probably show it on the screen here. So
yeah, I looked at that the Academy or whatever for the Advancement of Science, and then Leo said that was a crap article. So
okay. So physicist and philosopher Mario Bunge cords use the term scientism with a favorable rather than a pejorative sense in numerous books published over several decades, and in articles which titles such as "In Defense of Realism and Scientism" and "In Defense of Scientism." So let's see. Bunge dismissed critics of science such as Hayek and Habermas as dogmatists and obscurantists. Let's see what he said. I suppose I can show this page. It would be easiest for us to dig into it a little bit. So, but you can clearly see that there's a difference between our definitions. So,
I mean, I don't necessarily think there's that much of a difference, because when you say things, knowledge is itself a thing, right?
What the fuck?
I mean, it's either the case that you see knowledge as a thing, or you see knowledge as a different type of thing.
Yeah, I see knowledge as a thing. So, but knowledge of
applies, though, doesn't it?
Knowledge of is a little bit different. We're straying from the topic when we start talking about knowledge, because knowledge is pretty deep. We've already established that. I don't know. I think we had a disagreement about what knowledge was last time, or the first time we talked about this. So let's see. To innovate
knowledge. What matters is that we both have a rough conception of what theory of knowledge we want to address this. We want to address this monster with.
What now?
What matters in the course of this discourse mainly is that when we talk about knowledge or something related to knowledge, that we both have a similar conception of the theory of knowledge that's being used.
Well, only if we're considering your version of scientism, which you don't hold. What about my version of scientism, which I do hold, and which I say all things can be understood in terms of science? So why would we start talking about, why would we go down the rabbit hole of knowledge right now?
That doesn't seem, because your definition doesn't seem to be semantically significantly different from my own. Because if you're choosing to reject my definition, what that seems to imply is that you consider knowledge to be a different type of object than other types of things.
Yeah, then understanding of things. Understanding of things is a kind of knowledge, but it's not. It certainly doesn't describe all of knowledge. It certainly wouldn't describe it certainly wouldn't help us with statements, normative statements like killing is wrong. Okay, we're going to have to dig a little deeper for that kind of knowledge, right? So I'm saying that all things can be understood.
I mean, I seem to be semantically, like, significantly different from my own. Hold on. Because if you're... I mean, my point is mainly that, hey, look, if you consider knowledge to be a type of thing, right?
Go away. Go away. Cat, go away.
Then I guess my contention would be, if you're choosing to...
You're using knowledge, just saying knowledge, all knowledge. Okay, it's too broad an umbrella for what I'm talking about.
Well,
so
that's
you're
essentially
misunderstanding what I'm talking about.
Right, but when you say things, right, you're using that as an inclusive. You're using that as an inclusive statement. You're not using that as a means of saying that there are some forms of knowledge which understand through science, and not other forms of science, and not other forms of knowledge which can be understood through science.
I never said that. I never said any of those things. I said all things in the universe are things in the universe. They're physical things,
right,
and we are physical things.
Right, but now take a particular object of that set. Say the thing you're interested in is knowledge. Right? By that argument, all knowledge can be understood.
I didn't mean those kind of things, immutable. I did not mean those kind of things. Those are abstracts and they don't exist. So those are they don't ontologically exist. So why would I?
Okay.
So why are you trying to damn straw up my ass? Is what I'm asking.
Excuse me, guys. One moment of administration here. Immutable. Why did you paste a link to this YouTube channel or this YouTube live stream in the live chat?
Well, because Leo might want to join and insert his opinion.
Okay, it's not, but it wasn't the Streaming Labs link or whatever, the StreamYard link. Oh, it was actually the link to the YouTube's channel.
Yeah.
Let me correct that. That's weird.
Well, don't put the StreamYard link in the live chat because I'm not going to sit here and throw people out of the back room all night. So.
Well, you can choose who you let in and out of the room.
Yeah, but if people keep coming into the room over and over again, I'm going to have to keep throwing them out. Why are you, why would you do that?
The only person you're going to let in is Leo if he chooses to come in.
I'm not letting Leo in. I don't need two of you. I don't need two of you. Okay, I'm having enough trouble with you.
He wants to have a one-on-one.
When he's been part of this conversation, I think it's only fair that he gets to.
Well, we can have that conversation, me and Leo, at another time.
Well, okay, but why have the same conversation twice?
Why not? It's what we do.
Because eventually we want to bury the hatchet with this thing.
We're not going to bury the hatchet anytime soon, I got a feeling. But anyway.
Yeah, but I think each conversation should be distinctive, so.
Okay, so let me get another color here for my own satisfaction. Okay, so let's back up. Okay, so we've already determined that the version of scientism that you're attacking is not the version that I hold.
Hey, you've still got the Wikipedia article up. You want that?
Yeah, I do. Okay, to innovate. Okay, hang on a second. Let's see what this Mario Bunch. He's an actual scientism is. To innovate in the young science, it is necessary to adopt scientism. This is a methodological thesis that the best way of exploring reality is to adopt scientific method, which may be boiled down to rule check your guesses. Okay, so he's talking about scientific method. I'm saying something else entirely. Opposed by dogmatists and obscurantists of all stripes, such as Hayek and Habermas, a ponderous writer who managed to amalgamate Hegel, Marx, and Freud, and decreed that science is the ideology of late capitalism. Okay, so there's some political bullshit going on here. Okay, 2 cheers for scientism. Another guy. 2 cheers for science. It is defensible to claim that scientific, philosophical, and humanistic forms of knowledge are continuous. I agree there. and that a broadly naturalistic description of our world centered on natural science is correct. Now that is more like me. At the very least, such views are legitimate. They may be mistaken, but not because of an elementary error, a confusion of science with ideology, or an offhand dismissal of humanities. Those of us who argue for such a view are entitled to have two cheers for an ambitious conception of science. And if that is scientism, so be it, which is pretty interesting. So,
I mean, I respect those positions, but I don't think any scientist worth their salt is going to say that science itself is capable of embodying all forms, is capable of both embodying and understanding and accounting for all forms of knowledge.
well, I can't be expected to cure everybody's problems.
I mean, but you said something interesting. I mean, you said you don't believe in the existence of abstract objects.
No, not really.
Okay, but so what? That's a really interesting thing, though, because now you're stuck with kind of thinking about, to what thing are you referring?
Okay. I'm referring to things in the world, physical things. Human beings are physical things, okay? We have brains and they're physical things. Our minds are physical things. Our abstract ideas are physical things, ultimately. Can be reduced to physical things, right?
Right,
So,
but that's not what I'm driving at. What I'm referring to is that when I talk about a symbol, for instance, or when I talk about something being something that's being referred to, you can essentially think of that as being in two parts. You can think of that as being the referrer and the referent, right? So if something to which an object refers, and essentially the type of thing which that object bears.
okay.
Like there's a difference between, for instance, like a symbol like the United States flag, right?
Wait a minute. Are we going down what abstracts are right now? Are we going to talk about that?
No, I mean I'm just trying to outline like why abstract objects are important and why rejecting them kind of puts you in a.
Okay, but what does that have to do with our problem with this definition? We're not.
The issue with that is if you're not referring to abstract objects, I don't see how any of the terms you're using have any sense of meaning at all, because there's no object by which you're referring to for the symbol to have, reference.
Okay, it sounds to me like you're still trying to push your version of scientism up my ass.
This isn't scientism, though. This is basic logic.
Okay, but now we're talking about abstract objects instead of talking about the original problem, which is precisely why Leo's not getting in here, because the other day, that's what you guys did to me until I got tired and quit. Okay, we're going to talk about
Who did what to you?
the original problem. And right now, we can't even get past the definition. You can't even accept what I'm telling you is my position. Okay, my position.
And I'm telling you your position. And I'm telling you your position reduces to my position if you select a particular element out of the category you called things.
And why is it so important for my position to turn into your position when you don't even hold that position?
Because if my view is if your view is symbolically equivalent to the position I described, the issues I levy against your position are consistent.
Right. So if I accept your straw man version of my position, then you win the argument.
No, by your own definition, right? What you said, yes. And now, what happens to that statement if you insert the word knowledge? If you consider one of the classes of objects
all knowledge as opposed to all things. Okay, you understand that things are not the same as knowledge. My cat is not knowledge. My cat is not a version of knowledge, right? My cat is a thing in the universe. So you understand the difference.
Okay.
So you want me to widen my position or change my position instead of things to be knowledge. Help me out, Scott. Am I wrong here, Scott? I mean, do you understand what I'm saying?
You're saying that that immutable doesn't understand. I'm sorry. He doesn't believe in the definition of scientism that he gave. So why is he trying to win you over to that as the definition?
Right.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Why are you trying to switch my things to knowledge when things are obviously things are not equivalent to knowledge?
Right, but knowledge itself is a thing.
Knowledge is a thing. Yeah, it's a complex thing in the universe. It's one of the things that we can learn about.
Okay,
It's one of the things that we can
scale
learn
Okay.
about.
Y'all, we've been going at this. Hey, we've been going at this about a half an hour
Already?
on the definition of because we started about 7:30, right?
Yeah, because he's not accepting my position.
Right.
No,
He's arguing against
we're
the
doing it
position.
good
I
to
know
go
it's
on
not.
to
What you're
the
doing-
is versus ought. Is it possible to go on to that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
No, what you're doing, my accusation towards you is that you're special pleading on a particular example of your own definition. And the example I think you're special pleading on is the instance where you substitute and particularize your statement to the idea or notion of knowledge, which you've agreed is a thing.
A complex thing, but it's not the only thing that I'm talking.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when I refer to like a class of when I say like there's a set of colors that I will refer to, right? It doesn't matter if the color I'm referring to is crimson or if it's baby blue. The complexity of the color has no bearing on whether or not that thing belongs within that set of categories.
Yeah, but you're using knowledge in a different sense than I'm using it when I say that knowledge is a thing. I'm saying that knowledge is one of those things that we can use science to understand.
What I'm using knowledge
you're
to
saying
mean,
that all knowledge can be derived or attained by science, and I'm not saying that. So, okay.
Okay, but the thing you haven't disagreed with my fundamental point though.
What is your fundamental point?
When you particularize your statement using the word knowledge, that the statement is still consistent.
Why would it be consistent when you're using knowledge in a different sense? You're saying all knowledge.
I'm not using knowledge in a different sense. What I mean by knowledge is a method in which we have justification for a belief that's held.
Method by which? Okay, that's kind of unpacked in my understood. That basically we can have knowledge of things, basically, but you're saying all knowledge, which is a different thing than saying all things can be understood. All things can be, we can gain knowledge of all things through science. That's my statement. You're saying all knowledge can be derived or attained. I give you an example of riding a bike. How in the fuck are you going to ride a bike with science?
Let me ask this question, and hopefully this isn't a complicated question. Do you think it makes sense to say that we can know that? God, here we go. Do you think it makes sense to say that there are things, but not that we have? But how do I say this? Do you think it makes sense to say that there are things, but that we don't have knowledge of those things? Because to me, that seems self-contradictory.
Yeah, we could have knowledge of knowledge because knowledge is can be. You can
not knowledge of knowledge. I'm not wanting to dive into a meta theory of knowledge. I'm saying knowledge of things.
Knowledge of things. Okay, but knowledge is just okay. All knowledge of things can be illuminated with science. Can be understood through science. All things.
Okay, but the question I asked was, do you think it makes sense to say that there are things, but not all? Do you think it makes sense to say that there are things without, in lieu of saying that we have knowledge of those things?
Like if a big amorphous blob just appeared one day in your driveway and you don't know what it is, but all you know is it's a thing.
Okay, big amorphous blob appeared in my driveway.
Is that what you're trying to get at, Immutable?
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is...
You know it's a thing, but that's the only thing you know about it.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, like, when you describe an amorphous blob, or when you describe a book or a song or something like that, you're describing knowledge of that type of thing. You're describing knowledge in terms of the category, categories that are being used within that object, right? You're able to identify and to understand what the particular abstract notions being conveyed by that object and symbol are, right? So there is knowledge in regards to when we express propositions.
Loki or Thor, I don't need you right now. Thor wants to weigh in on this. Do you want to listen to his opinion? Okay.
I think he agrees with me.
So, okay, we have all things. So I'm saying all things are physical. All things can be rendered in terms of physicality. Hold on a minute. Oh, shit. You guys want to hang on a second? Scott, maybe try.
Sure.
Scott, try to work this out a little bit. I don't know.
I'm just going to encourage Immutable to do some deep breathing.
No,
I know it's frustrating for him.
Yes,
I'm the moderator, man. I'm not going to get involved.
No, I'm having fun with this. I'm just confused, like why there's so much resistance on the type of argument that I'm presenting.
I don't know. He does confess to being a contrarian.
Okay, so now we're talking about, are we defining things now?
No, I'm saying, look, you can define whatever thing you want to. You can define a dragon. You can define whatever it is you wish to say, right? But what I'm saying is that when you describe a thing, so when you say like Thor is next to me or something like that,
Jesus
right?
Christ, cats. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got cats. They're things. Okay.
And I'm saying, contained within, when you make that utterance, when you say, or when you express a proposition, right, you are also expressing knowledge of that proposition, or knowledge about that proposition.
So we have cat. Okay.
Right. And I think one of the things you're doing when you express that proposition is you're also expressing knowledge about that proposition or knowledge of that proposition.
Right, which I'm saying that we can obtain from science. All things that are like cats.
Okay. The thing is, with that particular argument, if you're saying science is the only way to do that, which that's so far you've rejected other abstract tools, so I'm left to believe that science is the only apparatus you're going to use.
Where did I say that? Where did I say that in this statement, that all things can be understood in terms of? Where did I say that's the only way to understand
science?
Where did I say that's the only way to understand things?
Right, but your statement has it not been that all things can be understood by science?
All things can be understood by science. I didn't say that's the only way to understand things, because understanding things is much broader, or the only way to know things, because knowing things is a much broader topic than just our scientific understanding of things.
Now, Speed, would you also add to that, all things can be best understood by science?
I think I would be inclined to say no. I'm going to reject a metric on that.
Basically. Well, that's a very soft scientism from what I've been reading about it.
Yeah, it's kind of harder than that. So
it's kind of squishy. It's a squishy scientism.
Yeah, do I want to say best here? I got to decide whether I want to say. Yeah, I think all things can best be understood by science. So science first, all this other bullshit later. Like,
okay, but so my concern with that position is that if we go back to the example of like a cat, when I say, "Oh, my cat has orange fur" or something like that.
Yep.
Right. It makes sense perfectly well from my perspective to make that statement, in reference and by utilizing an abstract object to be something which bears the object itself, which bears the conceptual conceptual material inside it. But it doesn't make sense to me to refer to the object by means of trying to understand it scientifically. Why? Because when you say that when you're expressing a proposition about the cat, you like that the cat is like the cat has orange fur or something like that, right? The issue is the way you understand that requires is inherently circular, because what you've essentially done is you're saying that the the knowledge you're referring to is the knowledge you're referring to being science, right? There's only one type of knowledge that can be referred to, and so there doesn't seem to be a need to distinguish one from the other.
Where did I say there's only one type of knowledge that can be referred to?
No, you didn't say that. I'm saying that if you accept scientism in the way that you've tried to outline it, what you're left with is you're left with only one form of knowledge. And that knowledge ultimately is self-defeating.
Okay, where did I say that's the only form of knowledge? I've been pushing back on that since the very beginning by telling you that I never said all knowledge. I said all things. Okay, and now you want to talk about abstract, and you want to talk about knowledge. And you know what you're doing? You're crossing categories on me.
And I presented.
Now you want to talk about how humans know things, when I'm telling you that humans are things. And if we want to talk about how they know things, we start with science, and then we can proceed.
I presented a counter argument to your view on the particular of knowledge, and you haven't responded adequately to my criticism of it.
Okay, the particular of knowledge. What is that?
When you say all things can be understood by science, right? The thing you're nailing down on is the word thing.
Okay.
And what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to take a particular object, an object from the subset of that overall category.
A cat.
And the thing, like a cat, but what I want to keen in on particularly is the notion of knowledge. And when you apply that term back to your original statement, if you substitute the word knowledge for all things can be understood, then one of the things you're saying is that all knowledge can be understood by science.
All knowledge can be understood by science if knowledge is a thing. Okay, we have a cat. Okay, we have a thing. Thing is a cat. Okay, so we have a cat thing. We have a cat thing, okay? And then we have a human thing. So we have an H thing over here, right? Mm-hmm. So you're saying that an H thing, okay, can have knowledge of a cat, right? So now we're doing science. Okay, now we have an H thing and we have a cat thing. And we have some kind of relationship between them called knowledge, right?
Well, to me, if the question you're asking is what separates the notion of a cat from a notion of a human, I'd say what separates them are fundamentally abstract notions. And what separates it more than that is
you think you're a cat?
No, I think what separates one from the other is the properties and the relationship of properties that define a cat as a cat and that define a human as a human.
Yeah. Okay. I know what you're doing. And I can't work with that.
What am I doing?
I can't work with that.
Why?
Because you're trying to, you're still trying to stuff this straw in my ass, number one. The second thing you're trying to do is
I'm just using your own argument, and you don't like the example I've chosen.
You understand that part of my scientism is that I flatten everything to objects in the universe, things in the universe, things that fucking exist. Abstract objects don't exist like that. There are no, basically, what we refer to exists in some manner, but abstracts themselves do not exist, only in our little brains and our language and our culture right here. So you're doing the cultural language thing, and you want to make those things, right? So you're still trying to replace my things with knowledge, which I am rejected from the very beginning of this conversation.
I would implore you to actually accept knowledge as a categorical thing, because if you choose to reject knowledge, well, let's go down that rabbit hole, right? Because if you choose to reject knowledge as a type of thing, right? What you're saying essentially is knowledge is something which does not exist. So
I never said
Hey,
that.
no,
Did
but
I say that, Scott?
No, but
No,
that's
my
what that
dogs were starting to argue. I apologize.
What's that?
My dogs were starting to argue. So I
Oh.
went, hey. So I do apologize if that interrupted the flow of your thought.
So
That-
what
that's
are the
the-
guys talking about in chat? They're talking about salvia. We've totally left them in the dust.
Yeah, but we have 15 people watching now, so I'm very grateful for the expanded audience,
Yeah.
as well as the mind expanded audience, shall we say?
Yeah. So okay. So
I mean, can I give you the short form of my objection towards?
God damn it, look what I did. Spelled scientism wrong again. I can't even spell it. I mean, it's my religion, and I can't even spell it. What does that?
I would like to know the short form of your objection to it.
Right.
Immutable.
So
Yeah.
here's the thing, right? It's a double-edged sword. If you're going to say that knowledge is not a type of thing, right? When we refer to types of things, we're hopefully operating under the pretense of things which exist. Because if we're not talking about things which exist, we're not really talking about things which are meaningful. So when I say knowledge is not a thing, what I'm saying is knowledge is not a thing that exists. And if
Okay.
you hold that position, then all systems professing to hold said knowledge are inherently false. Because knowledge, if it's not something that exists, is something that can never be attained, because there's nothing actually to be attained from it. And so what that does actually is it trivializes all systems which claim to have some form of what we're calling knowledge.
Okay. I did not say that.
What part of what I said is wrong or objectionable?
You're talking about me saying knowledge doesn't exist because it's an abstract.
No, you're saying knowledge is not a thing. And the qualifier on thing, hopefully with what we're
I
talking
said that.
about,
Okay.
things that exist.
Let me clear it up. Okay. Knowledge is a complicated thing. It's right here, right? Okay. It's a complex thing. It primarily exists over here in this human thing, right? That's where you would find knowledge. So if we're going to study knowledge, we're going to study these human things, this kind of a thing, right? And it has a relationship to the cat thing. Okay. So at some point, the human encountered the cat thing and obtained knowledge of the cat thing. And that knowledge is over here in the human brain, on the human body. And that is where the knowledge exists. So in that sense, knowledge does exist, but we can't talk about it like it's a cat, because it's not a cat. It's a little more complicated than that. It's going to be a brain sort of thing. It's going to be something that we humans have words for and we have concepts for. And so there's a whole lot of meta going on here when we're talking about knowledge. And I have rejected from the very beginning you saying that all knowledge can be derived or attained from science. I said all things can be best understood with science.
Right.
So why don't you attack my position instead of trying to, for
right. You also agreed
1 hour you have been trying to
you've also
strawman my position.
No, you've also agreed that knowledge is a thing. Right? And that's one of the more critical aspects to this. Is because knowledge is a thing, that substatement applies to your standard.
Right. And we can learn about knowledge with science, a lot about it. We can learn a lot about how we attain knowledge of cats.
Hey, Speed.
Yeah.
Pardon the interruption, but there's a Charlene Bruznak in the side chat. Is that somebody?
I don't know who that person is.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Are you some kind of Polak from the north? I think, yeah, I think I have run into this person in my life. I don't know.
I don't know how you're going to understand how you think it's you're going to understand science, or
This is precisely my point with scientism, okay? Because you get lost in all these weeds, in all of these meta things where you're trying to understand knowledge of things by understanding abstracts of knowledge and all of this linguistic mumbo jumbo, which philosophers fucking love, okay? And I'm saying let's flatten it. We got a human thing, we got a cat thing. If we want to say the human thing has knowledge of the cat thing, obviously you agree as a physicalist of some fashion. You claim you're not a physicalist, right?
I mean, I'd probably border on dualism.
Oh my god. Okay. The fuck have I gotten into? Anyway,
But
so
I
I
think
flatten this as human things and cat things and knowledge, and that is my scientism in a nutshell. That I will not sit here and talk about abstracts all day long, and I won't let you replace my things with knowledge, because we have things here, and that's what we want to talk about. So if you want to talk about knowledge, we're going to talk about what happens to your brain to acquire knowledge when you run into a cat. That's what I'm going to talk about.
That's not knowledge. It's a process.
It's a what?
It's a process.
Okay, so what is it? What happens to a human thing when it runs into a cat and it pets a cat and it owns a cat and it hangs out with cats for a while? What happens to the human thing? What changes in the human thing? If the human thing had never seen cats before, now the human thing sees cats.
I mean, that's a relatively vague question. I mean, I think when people are referring to knowledge, at least in the philosophical context, what we're referring to is how we understand the contents of our beliefs, and how we understand the contents of our beliefs to be true or false, and how it is we can know or justify those things.
Okay. We never got to the is-ought, and we're an hour into it already, so I'm thinking about letting Leo in and letting you guys discuss what's wrong with me, and me sort of taking a back seat, because
let Leo in.
Is Leo even still here?
Leo's been in the back room for quite a while, but no, Leo's missing. All I see is Leo's map on the back wall.
We've lost our Leo.
I don't see an actual Leo. There's just a missing Leo.
Well, I did a couple of chores and went down the hallway while y'all were talking for a while.
Did you see one of the comments to you, by the way?
Hold on a second. Does anybody fucking understand what I'm saying? Anybody out there in chat, Scott, anybody understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah, all things can be best understood through science.
Okay.
That's what you're saying.
Yep. And
that's
okay.
not your original
And
point.
do you understand how I applied it to knowledge just now, Scott? When I said we have a human thing and a cat thing. Do you understand the reduction that I'm doing, the flattening that I'm doing of the concept?
I don't understand. I don't understand how that's knowledge. You're just creating two sets of abstracts. You're saying there's one thing.
We have a human thing, and the human thing runs into the cat thing, and something changes in the human thing. There's a delta, right? There's a change in the human thing. Okay, that change is knowledge. That is the physical nature of knowledge. That is probably a bunch of synapses or hardware.
You're talking about the neurological change that perceiving and investigating that new thing that came into your field of vision created inside you. All of that together is knowledge.
Yes.
I don't see
Assuming that all of that can be mapped to physical changes.
So even my sister understands me.
Is that your actual sister?
Well, I'm not gonna admit to that.
Oh, okay.
That's referencing a fact of the world. It's not referencing how that fact is justified or how that fact is understood and known to be true.
Right, because I said all things can be understood best with science. Okay, I'm not talking about your abstracts or any of that shit, right?
That statement itself is trivial, though.
It's trivial? What do you mean? What's so trivial about understanding how knowledge works?
Because facts about the world are trivial, right? we could live in a universe where instead of the sun rising and having, red skies and, orange skies in the morning, it's purple or blue or green or things like that, right? Reality could be any way it so desires to be, right? We aren't in control of how reality chooses to chooses to function. But
Right.
so any set of facts about the world are fundamentally a property of rules or systems that define it. That's not really
Okay, it's my sister, my little twisted sister. I call her Twisted Sister.
Okay, Twisted Sis. Well, it's
so.
good to have you here.
Okay.
Are you as
So, I mean,
twisted as your brother?
She just docks the fuck out of me.
so I mean, the point of there being physical facts isn't really a point of contention. I mean, it's ultimately a trivial statement. The properties of the world and dynamics that occur within the world are the way they are, right? But that doesn't do anything in terms of us understanding how or why those
You
things
think
are the way they are.
you think the property of things in the world is trivial?
I could live in a world where the sunset, right, where the sunrise and sunset, instead of being the colors they normally are, right, are green or blue or violet or magenta or something like that, right? It could be any way. It could be any number of different ways,
How could it
right? The
be?
laws of physics could change in such a way that instead of experiencing a sunrise where we see yellow light, we instead see purple light or green light or whatever color you'd like to choose.
Orange light. Okay,
Right?
because we're on Mars, and you can't see that on Earth. On Earth, the only thing you're going to see is blue light.
Right, but there's nothing restricting that possibility there's nothing restricting that possibility modally, right? There's nothing contradictory about saying that it's possible in principle that it's possible in principle for us to exist and occupy a world where the state of affairs we experience are different from this current state of affairs we currently identify with.
Yeah, if there are different things in the world, like if we didn't have an oxygen atmosphere and we had carbon dioxide, then the sky would not appear blue.
I mean, the fact we understand like other planets and systems that are similar to our own seems to be evidence of that point, right? To me, at least, it is.
Okay, what? I'm not sure what you're talking about right now. You're saying that if we lived on Mars, the sky would be a different color.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think you can associate the properties, some of the properties, the descriptive properties we name, such as the sun rising and falling, and the colors we associate with that as being accidental properties of the world. I don't see what instantiates that as being a necessary property of the world we live in.
Right, but no, it's a necessary property of an oxygen world.
Not necessarily. Could it not be the case that there exists a world where oxygen has, ever so slightly rules governing its quantum mechanical structure and, the behavior it has molecularly?
Whoa, now you're talking about a different universe where you have different laws?
I'm just talking about a world in which some of the principles which govern our concepts are slightly modified.
You're talking about a world with different physical laws.
Right, or a world in which the facts we experience are different from the facts we experience currently. And that's why I raised the example initially of saying that we could live in a world, I could conceive of a world where instead of the sunset and sunrise being, a yellowish orangish color, that I could observe it being a greenish or bluish color or a purplish blackish color or something like that. Right? It's possible.
Why? How would that happen?
How would that happen?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the sky. Let's simplify it now. Let's talk about the sky is blue. Sky is blue. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So you think the sky could be orange?
I think it's possible that that there is a possibility that instead of the color we see and we identify as being orange or yellow in color, that there is a possibility that we identify that color as green or blue, or that
Wow.
property actually is characteristic of green or blue light.
You mean if this human thing made a squeaky noise that sounded more like green than blue? So you're talking about different squeaky noises. These human things make squeaky noises. You've been doing it for an hour. So you
So
make
if you
different squeaky noise. I don't have a problem with that, but I do have a problem with the sky not
All
being
right, I'm the
blue.
referee. That's a foul there, Mr. Speed.
What did I
how is
do?
that a foul?
What did I do?
You just kind of by the way, said that Immutable's been squeaking all this time.
And
Okay,
so is Speed. He's been special pleading all the time.
you're right.
But it's okay. I love him anyway.
Oh my God, Immutable, you are so confused. I can't believe it. This is why we need scientism. This is
That's
exactly
why
why
I'm
we need science.
confused. I have a much easier time accounting for the objections that I've raised. I don't find my view to be lacking in terms of the deficiencies that I see within your conception.
I just find it very confused. I mean, you start out, for one thing, you can't even accept my definition of scientism without trying
I
to.
have accepted your definition
No,
of
hang on a
scientism.
second now. And then you start talking about knowledge. Then you started talking about abstract things. Then you started trying to claim that I claimed that knowledge didn't exist. And I mean, and now you're on to the. Now you're on to some. Now you're on to some idealistic view that just because we could see the sky as a different thing than we see it, even though we are these human things who are definitely going to see that fucking sky as blue. And I just think you're very confused, and this is why you need scientism. And
no, I'm not confused at all. I'm saying I don't know where you got half the things you just said.
we apply it back and find out where you went from one thing to another, and how you absolutely.
I didn't. What I did in regards to your first critique was I particularized your definition, and I said, let me take a subset of the category you're defining as thing, and I prefaced it by asking you, do you accept knowledge as a thing? And then I showed that if you accept knowledge to be a thing, that the definition I have is in fact consistent and coherent with your definition, and that the objections I've raised.
Okay, so you showed me how knowledge is a thing, but you didn't show me how all things are knowledge.
When did I claim all things are knowledge?
You see what you did there?
No, I didn't say all things are knowledge.
So, okay, all knowledge basically, can be derived. Okay, knowledge is a subset of things. Okay, I said, it's a very complex thing.
Can I ask a quick question here?
I don't think, not yet, Leo, not until I bow out, please. Okay, all things, I said, all things can be understood, best understood with science, right? One of those things is the subject of knowledge, right? When I'm talking about knowledge in that way, I am not saying all knowledge. I am saying knowledge is one of the things that we can discuss with scientism.
Well, sure, and I agreed to that. I never
you see the different. Do you understand the different sense that we're using knowledge when you say all knowledge and all things? Because we can say that all things can be understood, but to be understood, that's knowledge. So we're over here. So now you've moved my knowledge over to the other side of my proposition.
No,
and you have totally changed the category.
I gave you my definition of knowledge, and I can give it to you again if you need me to.
What did you say? That you?
I've given you my definition. I've given you my definition of knowledge earlier in this conversation, but I can do it again if need be.
Propositions and norms. You had two different categories that you mentioned, just propositions and norms, right?
No, what I defined knowledge as is I define knowledge as some metric of justification for belief.
Metric of justification for belief. Yeah, I don't define it that way. I'm sorry.
then me and you don't cohere on what it means to have knowledge.
We don't agree. Yeah. Yeah, I think knowledge is a much wider subject than that, and it's much more.
Right, I think that's pretty broad and I think that's fairly broad for what most people will talk about when they talk about knowledge.
A scientism schism. Yeah, we had a schism.
Well, I'm not a scientist, so there's no schism to be identified.
Scientism schism. Yep.
My philosophical views don't conflict with these issues.
You need to go back and change all the titles of these scientism videos to Scientism Schism 101.
I should. Yeah, I should. Yeah. Okay. So I'm hoping that somebody understands what I'm doing with scientism and what I mean by it. And if you don't, Jesus Christ, I'm going to have to elaborate.
I don't know what the point of it is, because you haven't even demonstrated that your view is internally consistent.
What do you mean? It's perfectly consistent. I said all things can be best understood with science.
The Christians
and I showed you
God exists, but it doesn't mean that it does. I mean,
you offered knowledge as a thing, and I started to show you how we can start to understand knowledge with science.
Right, and I explained to you that what you're referring to is a fact. Right? What you're referring to is like
the word fact. You just drug that one up out of the back room just now. Okay. So I'm not sure what you mean by that, but I'm telling you that we can understand knowledge.
What I mean by a fact is I mean some descriptive property of the world.
Okay, do you understand how we could use neuroscience to understand knowledge?
No, because I view the processes of neurosciences to be processes. I understand them to be facts.
Hey, Speed, move me down to the bottom so Leo can be visible.
Oh, you want Leo visible? Okay, I'll move you to the bottom, Scott. You be the bottom hyena.
That's right, I'm the bottom hyena.
No, I'm moving him down there.
Oh.
I don't see how a fact, which relies on a scientific principle of knowledge, can be used to justify knowledge.
Okay, so you do not see how we can use neuroscience to understand knowledge.
I don't see how you can use a fact to justify a principle which substantiates facts, that being knowledge.
Okay, I'm done with you.
You can try and explain it. I mean, I don't understand how you're going to say that this kind of knowledge is something more fundamental than a fact about the world, that being, neuroarchitecture and
Scott,
these neurocircuits that exist.
You're using the old trick. I'll get his sister and I'll find out more about him.
That's what I'm trying to gain knowledge through.
So am I. Speed apparently is unwilling to share his view. So
I shared my view on how you understand knowledge, and you don't even understand that it's possible. So I'm done with you. So it's like if you don't understand how knowledge is describing topic in neuroscience, then I'll be fucked. I can't go.
What you're describing, okay. The thing is, when you're describing like neurocircuits within the brain, and how those processes comprehend information, and utilize that to make notions about the world, those are all facts about objects, are they not?
Yeah.
Right.
Back to my thing. All things can be understood with science.
If we're referring to facts, right, that's fine. I can consider facts to be, to some extent trivial or accidental properties of the world we live in.
When you call them accidental properties, that sort of disturbs me, but go ahead.
Right, but so if these are facts of the world, that's fine. I can imagine, using modal logic, a set of scenarios in which the particulars of that process are different.
Okay.
Right? But the thing is, to understand why something is what it is means that we need to justify that. Means that we need to justify our notion of knowledge and justify what it is we mean when we say, I believe that the neuroarchitecture in the brain is responsible for, cognitive processes or processes regarding emotion and things like that. Because while I see that as a significant fact, that fact alone doesn't tell me about the significance of it, right? It's another fact about the world, like, oh, there's a blue stone on Mount Rushmore or something like that. Okay, that's nice to know, but what is it that grounds that fact? What is it that grounds that explanation, which is the notion of knowledge?
Okay, that you might have to unpack that a little bit. What does Icarus mean? Immutable destiny. Oh, he is not talking about propositional knowledge. Okay. So
Wow. I kept seeing that. And I read it presuppositional for some reason.
yeah, no, propositional.
Propositional, that makes more sense.
I'm talking about knowledge as a thing in a human brain, basically, because I'm a scientismist. So that's the only way I'm going to talk about knowledge. So, and when you went modal on me just now, immutable, I'm done with it, man.
Why? I mean, do you not think that there exists a possibility for reality to exist in some kind of different configuration than the one it does currently?
What does that have to do with fucking human beings? I don't understand why we want to go modal on this. I mean, I love modal logic, but no, we're not going to go there. We don't need to worry about universes where none of this shit matters, right?
No, the point of it is just to say this: facts are facts, right? They are particulars about the world that are resolvably true. Okay, that's fine.
I don't know what the fuck a fact is exactly.
I described what a fact is. I said a fact is a property of the world.
A fact is a property of the world, okay.
Right? And facts, there's numerous facts I can name about the world, like the universe appears to have a flat overall geometry. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west.
Give me some facts about knowledge.
The facts about knowledge?
What kind of
It's
knowledge?
the bits to talk about. That's a fact.
What kind of knowledge?
It's hard to. I mean, that's a little hard to say. I mean, there might be such a thing as knowledge in a rigorous sense.
Okay.
It's definitely true that there's different ways one can refer to knowledge.
Okay, if I tell you that, let's see, if you learn a fact about biology, right, tonight,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go to sleep and you wake up tomorrow and you remember that fact, what has changed in you?
What has changed in me?
Yeah, between today at noon and tomorrow morning when you wake up remembering that fact about, say, the protein Titan. Okay.
Well, my conception of that object may have changed. What I associate to be facts about that object and how those facts relate to each other might have changed.
Okay, what has physically changed in you between noon today and tomorrow morning?
What has physically changed?
Yeah.
Probably the relation, of neurons or neuronal firing or something like that.
Okay. That's what I'm calling knowledge.
Okay, but
because of
the knowledge, the knowledge, this goes to the thing I was talking about with symbols. I mean, I don't think the symbol of the American flag, right? The flag itself, right, necessarily bears the content that it bears, right? The belief of liberty and democracy and things like that. There appears to be a difference between a symbol and, something that's symbolized.
Biosemiotic or semiotics.
Yeah, precisely. Right? I mean, there's a strong difference in saying that, that, to me at least, there's a meaningful distinction in saying that there is a difference between something which is a symbol and something which is symbolized by that symbol.
So, Speed.
Yeah.
So, you're saying that knowledge is essentially the change in your brain. I'm going to say brain state, even though that may not be the exact word for it, from one time to another, from one passage of time to another. Is that close to what your definition of knowledge is?
Yep.
Okay. So it has to be in the brain, right?
Well, yeah, brain and body.
Okay, because like between now and tomorrow morning, I may accumulate, a micrometer of, that's a real small measurement, right? Or a nanometer or whatever of cholesterol in my bloodstream.
Yep.
That's a change in my body, but would you say that's a gain of knowledge? And it may be something I don't even haven't got the awareness or measurement of or assessment of, but it could constitute a change in my body, but I don't see where that changes my knowledge.
No, the place that knowledge would start would be at the synapse here. That basically some synaptical wiring in your brain has changed, and that happens all the time, every day. So
rather than brain or body, it would be a change in your synapses.
Yeah, the change would be in your synapses. So you'd have synaptic strength here. You may have another synapse over here that comes onto this particular dendrite, right? And that one becomes a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger because of calcium and some other things. Okay, so it becomes stronger. So now, the next time somebody says Titan, okay, basically, this thing fires, and it hooks up to another network, and now you have some knowledge. So now you've consolidated your knowledge. Basically, it's called consolidation. Mm-hmm. It's a process that happens normally, mostly while you sleep, but it happens over time. So that's where I would start with knowledge. Okay, knowledge in the brain, change the wiring.
So you have. I'm sorry.
I'm going to allow Leo to give his thoughts and have his hand at this conversation, because I'm going to take some time to recoup and think about other ways of approaching this, because clearly
you're tapping out for now, doing a tactical retreat.
Clearly, there's something that's just not clicking here, and I don't think it's. I think I've conveyed it to the best of my ability.
So, would you say what we have here is a failure to communicate?
I feel exactly the same way.
I think what we have here is. I think what we have here is dealing with the contrarian.
Nope. You're dealing with somebody who has an internally consistent position that you have failed to move in one iota.
So
and you don't even understand why.
I mean, the thing is, theists will claim that their God exists. You will claim that your position is internally consistent.
Yeah, you'll claim your bullshit about the sky being another color is internally consistent. It sure as fuck ain't.
No, I didn't say that. I said it's modally possible.
Modally possible, yeah.
Okay, so we have Jorge wanting in. We have Leo, who has been very patiently waiting to give his assessment of things, if he's still wanting to do that. One thing I'd like to bring up, here's the situation. Let's say you go to bed, and about 6 hours into your sleep cycle, you experience sleep paralysis, and you think you've opened your eyes, or you've opened your eyes, and there's the figure of a cloaked person standing in front of you. It's like in a black flowy, priestly looking kind of cloak. You can't quite see the face. You think it's the face of a woman, an old woman, but you just sit there and look at it. Now, somebody might say I was visited by a demon. Somebody might say, well, that was just sleep paralysis, and I just saw like a Jungian archetype from my past or whatever. What's the knowledge there? Is it does your assessment of what you saw constitute knowledge? Like, or if maybe the person was in a white cloak and you thought they were an angel visiting you, or where does the knowledge stop and the woo begin?
Okay, it's going to change your brain. You believe that you saw something during the night while you were sleeping, and what you believe basically could be a number of different things depending on who you are, right? Okay, but you could believe it's Jesus. I had such a vision when I had, basically I was waking up from probably sleep paralysis, and I could have believed it was Jesus, or I could have believed that I was dreaming something and there were remnants of it left in my mind when I woke up. But I know that I had that experience, so that is knowledge of an experience that I had while I was sleeping. Just like if I dream something, if I dream that my cat ate immutable tonight, then I will have knowledge of that dream tomorrow. If I remember that dream, if I wake up and remember. So that is called knowledge. It's knowledge of my own internal states, right?
Yeah, to one person, though, who might have had a similar experience, their knowledge is, I saw an angel. But to the other person, it's, I saw a figment of my imagination.
Yeah, that's why knowledge has justified is it knowledge that they call justified true belief? Yeah. That's why I don't like that. I don't care for that kind of treatment of knowledge. I look at it more organically, more scientifically.
Okay, now I'm going to cut myself off, and I'm going to cut this line of discussion off and ask Leo if he has any questions for Speed or any observations he wants to make.
Yeah, and I'm tapping out about 90% here, so.
Honestly, I don't really know. It just kind of boils down to what kind of knowledge we're talking about.
Hang on a second, Leo. I got to turn your mic up a little bit.
Why?
Because you were kind of low.
Am I?
Yeah, you're okay now. You're okay now. Okay.
Yeah. I think this just comes down to what kind of knowledge we're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's that deep of an issue. I think it's a matter of internal consistency, honestly. Because
who's on the bottom if Leo's up here and Immutable's up
That's
here?
probably me.
Oh, Orge's in here. Okay, well, welcome, man. I didn't see you there.
Oh,
yeah, who's on the bottom?
I hate rid of that shit. Otangelo, you're such a grass hole.
Like
that. Oh, that is grass hole. I thought Otangelo
it is actually grass hole, yes.
It's been grass hole the whole time?
Yes. We have not had an Otangelo appearance.
Otangelo's been here a few times, though, I think.
I call it an epiphany.
God, not real, but he think life come from rock. I love this. You can't tell the difference between him and Otangelo sometimes.
I know it's getting to be real. I forget what they call that, where you can't tell the difference between reality and satire anymore because it's been so crazy.
Yeah, Icarus got it right. I mean, it's pretty fucking simple. I'm refusing to talk about knowledge as some poofy thing called justified true belief.
Yeah, but that's only propositional knowledge.
I'm talking about it as actual information or memory, basically.
Yeah, but this depends on what kind of knowledge you're talking about.
And that's kind of, I was talking about what I said.
Well, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, Leo or Immutable was the one that wanted to start talking about knowledge right away. I didn't. I said all things can be.
Did we lose Midnight? Because
we didn't have Midnight.
He was here earlier wanting a link.
Oh, he wanted in. I'll send him an invite.
Yeah, I was simply offering a reductio of his view.
No, you were trying to strawman me, is what you were doing. and
No,
that's-
I was not. I was offering a particular.
You wouldn't accept my definition. You wouldn't talk about
No,
my.
I did accept your definition, and
No,
then
you
I
didn't.
gave a particular object within what you defined.
Scott, did he ever accept my definition in your knowledge of this topic?
It depends on what you might accept.
What's that? Or no, you're going to quibble about the. You were such a politician,
I
Scott.
think he understood what your definition was. Yes.
Spoken like a true politician.
You think he understood what my definition was?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I understand what your definition is. I just don't think it's sensible. I don't think it's coherent.
All things can best be understood with science. You don't think that's coherent?
Not with regards to specific.
Well, but the thing is, all things.
What's incoherent?
Huh?
Wait, though, but math isn't best understood using science. Neither is
Nor
logic.
is knowledge best understood through science. Nor is ethics.
And math isn't really a thing, is it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Very much a thing.
You're going to have to come up with a good philosophy of thingness to say that math isn't a thing.
Okay, math is a thing. If you have two oranges, then math is a thing in that manner that there are two oranges, and we learned about the number 2. We learned about numbers, in fact, from playing with blocks and oranges. And in that sense, it's a thing. But other than that, math is not a thing in the world. It exists as a relationship in our abstraction.
But oranges do exist, so therefore math exists.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, it's a thing in that manner.
Well,
so math,
Well, but that matter.
I don't think math is concrete.
and that's
no.
best understood with science.
No,
Understand
it
how
is.
we
How is
approach
math best
mathematics.
understood through science?
Okay, if math is a thing, right?
What do you mean when you say math is a thing?
If it is a thing, then
don't know
one of
what
the best ways to understand math is actually, I think math
I think I'm having Darth Dawkins flashbacks right now.
is part of science. I don't know. Are you?
Yeah, you guys are you're arguing with Leo about the definition of a word, and neither of you wants to budge.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, like I said earlier in the conversation, when you refer to something as a thing, presumably you're talking about it being a real thing and not something which is imaginary.
A real thing. Yeah. Kind of. Yeah.
Well, see that's
It's
still
the real
It's an
thing.
imaginary thing. It still exists as an abstract concept, and this is where I draw a distinction between abstract objects and concrete objects. Both exist, but they exist in different ways.
Well, I mean, I think they both exist in a very real sense. I think I'm not going to be interrogated on the stream about my framework.
I think abstracts exist as basically they have something to do with the nature of Cartesian space-time and physical objects. Okay, that abstracts are basically done on that. They're done on that field. Okay, it's Cartesian field, basically.
Well, yeah, I mean, the reason that we can abstract things is because we can interact with the external world.
Yeah, and there's something about the world that makes like that basically allows for, okay, there's this pattern here of dots. There's an abstraction. There's a relationship between these things. So there's a relationship that I would call an abstract, basically. There's something about where these things are in space and time that makes an abstract. And then we can take that and we can actually modify the Cartesian plane, come up with some really complex mathematics. But we're still starting out here with things in the universe. These are things.
Yeah, that's what math is.
But I mean, these things are actually in this spot in the universe at some particular time. And this pattern actually exists.
Their position is relative.
It's a real pattern.
Well, that's the thing. Their position is relative to an observer. Otherwise, their position is arbitrary.
Not necessarily. No, there's something about these things that basically, without an observer, they're still where they are, and we could still take mathematics, and we would find that this dot is, some vector from the other dot, right? And that dot is some vector from that dot, and that vector is the same fucking vector out here, no matter how you measure it, no matter who's
Right.
observing.
That's in fundamental disagreement with physics for one reason, though, because according to special relativity, I believe, right? There is no preferred rest frame one should choose in order to describe the laws of physics.
You don't need a rest frame with vectors.
Yes, you do. When
can
you describe the motion of
vector, you could transform a vector.
Yes, you can, but
Right.
what happens when you transform it in space-time space-time is irregular.
Well, then,
Well,
if you transform your Cartesian plane, basically, if you understand if you were to transform the plane into something else that was not a Cartesian plane, then of course the vectors would. But these vectors would still be the same because they'd both transform linearly. So this is a linear it's a linear relationship, right?
Well, but that's the thing, right? When you map when you're talking about like the mapping of vectors, right? You're mapping from one reference frame to another. You're mapping from one linear space to a new one.
Linear? Is it not linear?
It is linear, but the point is
It's called
Is
a
that-
linear vector space, for Christ's sake.
right. But the point is they depend on a reference frame. The basis of the transformation acts upon one frame of reference and transforms it to a new frame of reference.
Okay, in a vector, what depends on a reference frame in this vector? Okay,
The
We're
vector.
In a vector field, what depends in a vector field, what depends on the reference frame is the transformation.
Okay.
Well, more so the vector that's being transformed, but yeah.
but you do understand that under transformation, a linear vector is linear. Two linear vectors basically have a similarity in the relationship between this transformation, because it's called a linear transformation. Something is preserved in that linear transformation.
Yeah, that
Right,
would
but
be
doing that,
What is preserved in a linear transformation?
right, but
operations that you can do on vector spaces between vectors, like addition and multiplication and things like that.
So are we totally done with scientism and knowledge?
I think so.
something more fundamental to that, though, is that what we're describing as well is that if you didn't have a frame of reference for a transformation to act on a vector, what it means for a vector to be transformed by a linear operation to a new vector, it doesn't make sense.
Jorge, you're a physicist, right?
I got a degree in geophysics, yeah.
Yep. So do you understand what I'm saying about a linear transformation preserving some
I
relationship?
told you what it preserves. It's actually literally one of the rules of a linear transformation is that it preserves certain operations between vectors, the additive and multiplicative operations.
Okay.
Scalar multiplication, and then I think vector addition and scalar multiplication. I'm pretty sure that's the definition of a linear transformation. A transformation from a vector space that preserves those operations.
Right. Okay.
I was just thinking that how somebody explaining, say, what Leo just talked about, would leave changes in my neural network and would constitute knowledge like you described, even though it's an abstract thing. So it's a thing, right?
Yep.
Well, and the reason you have knowledge is because the principle that we're discussing is one that's familiar to you, but the means in which you've justified that, the new knowledge that you've acquired, is serving as a justification for pre-existing knowledge that you already obtained.
Yeah, in abstract spaces.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know where it fits in this discussion. Yeah, that's my new title.
Welcome to Philosophy 101.
The is-ought discussion that ought to have happened but didn't.
I mean, we barely got to Speed trying not to special plead away from his own definition, but man.
And I think your sister agreed that you are on occasion passive aggressive.
What's that?
I think your sister did end up agreeing that on occasion you are passive aggressive.
Oh shit! I give her so
That
much
actually
shit. It's
And then
amazing.
also that you like to hear yourself talk.
Was
But
that
I
actually
think,
your
I think
sister?
everybody agrees with that.
Was that actually your sister?
Yeah, that's my sister.
Cool. That's pretty fucking badass.
Wait,
Well,
Scott
she's
Duke is your
welcome back
sister?
anytime. She doesn't even have to put a quarter in the YouTube.
Did anybody here watch Sean Carroll on Aaron Ross channel?
I was going to do that later this evening.
It's good.
Sean Carroll is always a breath of fresh air in terms of his explanations and how
Oh,
he
yeah. He's a real good
managed to elucidate things.
explainer of knowledge.
Plus, what I like about him is that he's not just knowledgeable about physics. He seems to be like really philosophically adept.
Yeah, he's pretty. I think he's done a lot of reading in philosophy. Of course, he's developed what he calls poetic naturalism. So,
Poetic naturalism?
I mean, I think science is a form of poetry itself. So I'd agree just on the basis of title.
Well,
yeah,
if you
Sean
can do
Carroll
it- if
also
you do a
is not
mathematical proof in
scientism.
iambic pentameter, I will call it poetic.
How's it going?
Hey, Jake.
Jay!
What's up, guys?
Hello.
Oh, we're just having very abstract
Top of the
communication here.
evening too.
I'm trying to get Speed to understand what a particular is.
He doesn't wait. Speed, you do understand the difference between particulars and universals, right?
Yeah.
Particular.
Okay.
Oh my god.
My brother had a conversation. He had a conversation with an individual, a YouTuber by the name of Philip. He had an interesting way of pronouncing particular. Particular.
Are you talking about the Australian guy?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Particulars. Yeah. So you guys are dealing with particulars.
Pretty
Well,
particular.
we're trying to figure out how Speed's love child of a system is internally consistent.
It's so fucking simple that you're probably missing it.
I mean,
Uh-oh.
people claim God is the most simple thing to exist. So, I mean, now I'm between two claims
Here I-
now, aren't they?
Here I thought I was entering into a hippie love fest, but apparently that's not the case.
Hippie hate fest.
Yeah, big fight. They hate each other.
I'm just trying to get Speed to admit that he's not, that he's a contrarian.
I am a contrarian. I like to rethink things. And
You
I
were
will-
just-
You should rethink your scientism.
You just went contrarian, Speed.
Yeah, he freely admits that he's contrarian.
Yeah, I freely admit that I'm a contrarian. If you say is that you can't derive an ought from an is, I'm gonna fucking work on how you can.
You know what you really are, Speed? You're a cunt.
Wait, are you trying to
Contrarian?
wait? Are you trying to join? Are you trying to join descriptives and prescriptives as one thing?
Yep.
Oh,
Good.
that's. I missed a lot of that. I'm just.
Oh,
uh,
it didn't happen. This whole hour and a half or
It didn't.
whatever was supposed to be a brief summary of scientism and why you support it or don't support it, and then it went on for an hour, and so now we don't have time for the is ought discussion.
Yeah, and immutable is butthurt because he can't attack my position, so he tried to make my position.
What do you mean?
strong.
I've
No,
attacked
no.
your
No.
position once. You haven't.
No.
Let's just straw man his position.
I haven't strawmanned your position. I asked you several times. Is knowledge a
wait.
thing? You
Okay,
said yes.
Okay, tell me, what is it called when somebody offers you this fucking definition right here, right? That definition
Yes.
right there.
And when I asked you if
And
knowledge
you
is
rejected
a
it, you
thing,
wanna
and you
replace
said, "Hold on."
Replace it with another definition. What is that called? That
No, I didn't. No. I did not replace it with another
You
definition.
sure as fuck tried. You tried to put.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I
No, you
utilized a
That's all you did
particular.
for an hour.
No, I
Try to-
utilized a particular object in the subset of what you called things.
Okay. Wait. So let me. So I'm coming in late to this, and I haven't
Yes.
been lurking. But Okay, real quick, Speed. Why do you think that you can derive an ought? So you say that you can derive an ought from an is, or can you derive an is from an ought?
Okay, that is so over because that's what it was going to be about, but that isn't what it was about, and I don't have the bandwidth to go there right now.
I can explain to you the core of the idiocy in like a few seconds. But
I think we might want to take this off air. Sounds like it's getting into some hostile territory.
No, we're all good.
no, I mean,
Conspiracy.
he understands that he's a contrarian. He just won't admit that the objection is.
Well, what do you guys?
You
Okay,
don't even
so
understand the frameworks of an argument where you
I
understand.
do understand. I made every
Not
attempt.
accept my fucking definition. You
No,
never.
I accepted your definition.
No.
I accepted your definition every time you offered it. And then what I did is I picked out one object from that set.
So what the
I was
fuck?
going to say, I've known Immutable for a long time. He can concede an argument and still argue within the bounds of that argument. So I don't know how.
I can. I can accept whatever definition you put forward as long as you're being consistent with your definition.
This is funny. This is funny to me. But you guys continue on. I might have to go back and listen to this.
No. It's I'm hell. This has been the most fun I've had since dealing with Otangelo. I mean, this is just.
Oh snap!
Now that's passive aggressive.
No, that's not passive aggressive. That's not passive aggressive.
Whoops.
No,
we lost Immutable.
Don't kick him,
Right.
Did you kick him? Did you kick him?
I kicked
Look,
him.
I mean,
Don't
the
kick him.
difference. Hey, look,
Sorry,
man. I mean,
Sorry.
you know, the difference is at least Speed tries to give substantive responses to the things I say. It's a perpetual process of.
So what can somebody? So just out of curiosity, can anybody here suss out what the general disagreement is?
Yeah, I can do it.
I have a quirky definition of science. Science a little bit quirky.
You have an inaccurate definition of science.
It's sort of a basically I adhere to something I call scientism because I don't know another word to describe it. And it is that all things can best be understood with science. All things can best be understood with science. And Immutable wanted to change it to all knowledge can be derived or attained from science, which is probably the more standard definition of scientism, but I don't adhere to that. So the thing to attack would be the thing that I do adhere to.
Okay.
So but how do you define science? But what is science? If science is
scientific methodologies.
Do you want to know the contention? And here's the really autistic part. When I asked Speed halfway in this conversation, is knowledge a thing? He answered yes.
A complex thing, yes.
Yes. If you accept knowledge to be a thing, then you can also use knowledge in place of his original argument, since it is one of the things contained within his definition of the word thing.
And my accusation
becomes, and then the statement then becomes, all knowledge can be understood by science, which is the exact claim that I made that's written in blue.
But isn't that vicious? But isn't that viciously circular because you have to presuppose that you know science in order to know other things?
No.
Yes, it does actually.
Do not listen to this trash clown.
This trash clown,
whatever dumpster toad.
This trash clown will see you to your end, old man. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding. Just having fun with the conversation. Just having fun with it.
Jay,
go ahead, Speed. It's your channel. Sorry.
So he offered knowledge. Okay. He tried to pull a fast one on me. So I said knowledge is a complex thing that exists in the universe, right?
Which would require you to know. Which would require you to know that you know that about knowledge.
Which doesn't amount to a fucking hill of beans in this conversation, Jay. So anyway,
it doesn't. But the thing is, why does it matter if it's complex or not?
Okay, let me explain. When I said knowledge is a thing in the universe, I was referring to synaptic strength in a human brain. That's what I meant by knowledge being a thing in the universe, right?
But that,
Immutable
right,
wanted
but it still
knowledge of
applies.
my knowledge, and you just did it to me too, Jay. You just took knowledge in the philosophical sense that I can talk about what is my knowledge of that knowledge of that knowledge of that knowledge.
Yeah, it becomes viciously circular. Yeah,
Okay, but I
because
don't.
you're talking
Are
about
those all
because you're talking about mental states.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm talking about humans. Okay, hang on a second. I gotta have a pen. I'm talking about a human being as a thing.
I
in
can't-
the universe.
I can't see the screen.
Oh,
I'm
Got
on my phone. I can't see the screen.
Right.
My phone's in my pocket.
but anyway.
Probably for the better. It only gets more autistic.
I was talking about knowledge as a thing inside of a human, basically a thing about humans. So knowledge is a thing about humans that we can understand.
Knowledge is abstract.
Okay.
Well, my dog has knowledge of things, but it's not human.
I'm not talking about your philosophical definition of knowledge. I'm talking about knowledge as an actual biological process whereby an organism acquires knowledge about his surroundings.
But
That's
what about a
Ugh.
priori knowledge?
Oh, that's bad. That's
Yeah,
that's kind of bad, Speed.
yeah. You
That's a little
see
bad.
where I'm coming from now?
Okay, why is that
That's
bad?
a little.
What
Well,
You
about a
understand the
priori
shitstorm
knowledge?
now?
I got to think about it a little bit more, but your definition that you gave is a little bit. That needs work. That
So
needs a
Jay,
little
you're
work.
saying it
Yeah, it
is
does.
Well, hell
bad,
yeah.
so he ought not to use that definition?
Not to.
No,
You
I'm
better
saying
use that definition.
I'm saying he might want to rework it. That's the ought there. He ought
let's
to
put it this
rework
way.
that definition.
Let's put it this way: Thou shalt not define scientism in the way Speed has attempted to and failed.
That's kind of the way I wanted. That's kind of why I wanted to talk to you alone about this stuff, Jay.
Oh, okay, that's fine. You're gonna run into some problems.
Yeah. Well,
I think me and Jay pretty much agree on a lot of philosophy, so you're going to have a pretty interesting.
I would be very surprised if that was the case.
Leo looks like a candy like the canary. So,
Okay.
are you wanting to say something, Leo? No. Okay.
I'm just having fun. I like all of you guys, but this is a fun and this is a fun conversation. It really is. I'm glad I joined.
It is.
Yeah, it's been enjoyable for me.
Now all of a sudden I just caused an uncomfortable silence, or at least a lull. So
Our knowledge is gained through our experiences and stuff like that, and yada yada, rama rama ding dong. What about a priori knowledge?
So you have one definition.
knowledge.
Okay.
a priori knowledge is
priori
still
or
dealing with perception of.
Yeah,
Mind.
it's a priori and a posteriori.
So immutable.
What you know after the fact and what you can know before the fact.
So immutable, when he failed to strawman my position in any other way, what he did.
When I failed to strawman your position, which means I represented your position correctly.
Okay, immutable failed to strawman my position.
Yeah.
When he failed to do it, he decided that he was going to ask me if knowledge is a thing, and I agreed.
So
Yes, it is a thing. Okay, I'm going to toss you in the back room if you keep interrupting. Okay.
all right, praise.
So it's
Immutable,
pretty obvious.
immutable silence, son.
Okay,
All
it's
right,
pretty
praise.
obvious that we had two different versions or two different definitions of knowledge,
Right.
right? And then he decided to take my definition of knowledge and turn it into his, go over here and plug it into this fucking equation and strawman me again.
Can somebody stop making
No,
the
I
weird?
didn't.
Can somebody stop making the noises in the background, please?
That's Leo.
Thank you.
That's Leo.
Yeah,
Making
Leo's hemorrhaging. His mind is
know,
hemorrhaging.
I'm thinking of calling an ambulance to his house.
So okay, so there's a thing called knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So where does that thing?
I'll just say this: if I wanted to be in one of Praise's stream, I would happily join. But
Oh snap!
I do
Immutable.
appreciate.
Come on.
I do appreciate the luxury treatment from Speed.
Yeah. It was equivocation all along. Yep, I agree.
It wasn't equivocation. Because I gave you my definition of knowledge later on, and you agreed with it.
Did you mean Speed? Did you mean failed to steel man rather than straw man?
He failed to strawman my position, I think. I don't know. Is that?
That means I represented it accurately.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, but if you felt a strong man, then
No, he
So,
failed
anyway.
to get me to accept the straw man of my position. Okay, does that make sense?
No,
Basically,
because
yeah,
still,
it's hard to
I
talk
don't
about.
think anybody in this discussion has yet understood what my actual position is.
yeah, I do understand your
are-
position. I
And
don't
you
think
guys are making all kinds of noises, but I don't think you even understood what I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying. It just doesn't make sense.
Which means you don't understand what I'm saying.
No.
It means your concept is incoherent.
Okay. You admitted that it doesn't make sense to you, meaning you don't
Somebody, please give Leo a Tylenol.
give Leo a Tylenol.
No, me not understanding this wild concept in your head doesn't mean your concept is valid.
I guess, yeah, I can understand where that could possibly be the case.
I mean, I'm not going to affirm the views of a schizophrenic because the schizophrenic claims to have friends that only he can see and touch and talk to because
Which is a really nice,
There's no feelings.
basically, which is a nice ad hom argument there. You did
Oh
really
my
good. Thank you.
no, I'm not saying. Look,
One way
all
to
I'm saying
discount
is
because you don't understand it, you'll just say,
Oh, that's a
no.
fallacy.
Look, all I'm
doesn't make
saying
sense.
is the imaginary friends that a
Is
schizophrenic
that not
has.
an
Your
ad
argument are
hom
not on
version?
equal playing field.
Okay, have you not just committed the ad hominem?
No,
I
Speed.
just want to remind any current or future listeners that we support mental health and everybody seeking.
I recommend that people that want mental health do not listen to Speed in terms of the scientism philosophy that he's putting forward.
And we are in no way trying to denigrate people who struggle with schizophrenia. Okay, I guess I shut that whole conversation down.
Yep.
Immutable.
Yeah, apparently you did.
Yeah, all right. I'm sure I can turn that into a marketable skill.
Smack my bitch up.
Spectrum.
What?
Spectrum. I don't know.
Immutable.
Maybe
is
this
some
is one
kind
of the, maybe one of these maybe this is one of those conversations I should just wait till the stream ends and then I'll chime in.
Yeah.
I mean, the conversation is really simple. It's just it's amazing how hard it is to get some people to understand something. The principle of
Well, in your
monkey
mind, well, when your mind gets invested on a particular thing, sometimes it's hard to change your investment in that particular your attitude towards that particular concept.
Yeah, sometimes people are dense. Yeah.
I think CRISPR has the best summary of this whole thing.
Thank you for validating my view, CRISPR. I appreciate that.
What CRISPR write? Can someone read that? Because I can't see the chat.
Yes.
Oh, I'm
Answer
sorry.
to atheism. Yeah. You should give serious consideration to the possibility no one understands your argument because your argument is incomprehensible. That is always possible. In this case, likely.
Well, according to Speed, but it is not the case, CRISPR.
Now, one could argue that might be passive aggressive on CRISPR's part. I'm just kidding, CRISPR.
A little bit.
But the bad thing.
It's not popular.
You know the bad thing about this, though. Both philosophers and non-philosophers have given the exact same critique to Speed's argument. So it's not just philosophers who have a stick up their ass.
And isn't CRISPR also a scientist?
He is.
But is he a scientist? I wonder if he's a
I don't think
scientist.
so.
You should give serious consideration to the possibility that all of you had sticks up your asses.
You especially.
I don't have a stick. Let me check. Wait, Speed. Let me check. No stick today. There's no blood.
No.
Okay, but how do you know that? How did you acquire that knowledge? And can you justify that?
Sure, I've once stuck a stick up my butt, and now I can tell you that I know what it's like to have a stick up my ass and when I don't have a stick up my ass.
Okay, but what if that was like a false memory? I mean, how do you know that you really stuck a stick up your ass? There's a possible world where you didn't stick a stick up your ass and you just
I repeated it multiple times and got off on it.
Okay.
Well, thank you for
What kind of stick was
for
it?
adventures in your military career. I appreciate.
No, you're no, immutable. That's not fair. I was in the
Apparently
military, not
saluting the
prison.
troops just wasn't enough.
I was in the military, not prison. Come on.
Wow.
There was no broom
Was it
handle.
like
There
a
was no
random
broom.
stick
There was
you
no broom
found on-
handles. There was no broom handles involved.
Okay, was
And
it a random stick
You will
found on the
never
road?
unhear that either.
Jay, was it a polished stick at least? Please tell me it was like, did you take the bark off first?
Oh, I made sure to shellac it.
Oh, you shellacked it. Okay, good.
I
I'm glad.
shellacked it.
There you go. No, I believe you.
Hmm.
Yeah, there was this party.
I don't like splinters up there. They're hard to remove.
There was this party. So we failed at the very first step in basically critical thinking, and that is
Yeah, my particular mistake was trying to get out a summarize opposition.
what's that?
Oh shit! There we go.
I sure as
Please
fuck
tell me
failed with
somebody here
anything.
knows how to critically. That somebody here does not know how to critically think. That is a precious statement.
Uh-oh. See what I mean? See what happens? That's what happens right here.
I don't think anybody understands that either.
I don't think you understand your own
What,
your
you
own.
get electron
My
volts?
position is so fucking consistent and so perfect that
No, it's not.
it just fucking flies over your head because it is.
I mean,
okay. There's
That's some
always
serious. That is a little bit of a praise, isn't there? Speed,
That's
so.
some serious. That's some serious delusion. Much like Otangelo claiming to know more than PhD people in like genetics and.
Yeah.
Like-
If you're claiming that, but nobody really gets anything out of it, then there's really no value to it. So you
Okay.
can't say that it's necessarily perfect because nobody's getting anything out of it but you, which is fine. I mean, it's fine if you're getting something out of it, but if it's something that if it's something that you're claiming and people are supposed to adopt this as some kind of coherent logical argument and it's sound, you may have to rephrase it or rework it in order for other people to get a benefit out of it.
To put it gently, other people may interpret this as what's called mental masturbation.
It is such a flattened view of basically reality, and such a flattened view of human intricacies, language, and philosophy that it frequently flies over somebody's head. But that does not mean that it is not internally consistent in my thinking.
No, I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying that. Being a little bit of the philosophy layman myself, there, I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying if it doesn't have a benefit, if people aren't getting a benefit from your argument, then you may have to reword it in such a way that some people could see it as beneficial, and that
Yeah, it has to
that
be.
light.
It has
So
to
Icarus
be
wants me
explained.
to give the short form of my argument and why. What is my argument against Speed's definition? So my argument against Speed's definition is that under that definition, one of the categories that can be applied under that definition is the notion of knowledge. The reason that becomes problemsome is when you consider knowledge under the framework he's adopted. If all things are explainable through science, then the way you would end up understanding science is through science. And that is a circular claim and self-defeating.
Yep. Yep, I agree.
Okay.
Because science is actually how we come to know.
What about this? He used knowledge in a totally different sense than I did. So can he still do that? If he used knowledge,
No, I didn't. You agreed to my definition of knowledge earlier.
Immutable, let Jay respond. Okay, he used knowledge in a totally different sense than I was using it. I used it in the sense of thing. Okay, in a brain. Basically, I was defining it as a thing in a brain. He was defining it as something entirely different. So does that?
But a thing in a brain.
Does he still get to make that substitution if he was using it in an entirely different sense that I was using it?
Sure, if you want to be charitable, he could. But if you're saying that knowledge is a thing, what are the attributes of that thing?
Synaptic strength.
But
Right.
wouldn't synaptic strength be not the attribute of knowledge, but the precursor to gaining knowledge?
It's a property characteristic of knowledge, but it's not knowledge itself. This is why, like, later on in the stream, I tried to express the point that there's a difference between, like, between a symbol, right, and between, like, the symbol and the object which that symbol represents, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree.
Between there being a symbol and something that's conveyed by the symbol itself, right? The representative.
Yeah, basically.
Who is
basically
sucking
the
on
symbol.
microphone?
That's not me.
That's not me.
Somebody
But I did
sucking
hear
on
it. I did hear it as well.
Okay, I think it's Leo.
Yeah,
Leo, mute yourself when you're not talking.
But to me, I mean, I view in the case of what Speed's saying, I view that as an equivocation fallacy, because I don't see the process of neuronal strength and the strength and affinity for which neurons have to each other and interact as being something which is identical to knowledge. I see it's something that's characteristic of knowledge, but not equivalent to.
well, yeah, because if knowledge is a thing, is it contingent on that synaptic strength?
Yes, precisely.
If it's contingent on synaptic strength, then it's not. It's a thing in the sense that it's a byproduct of synaptic strength, not that it's just simply exists because the synaptic strength can adhere to it.
Right. Knowledge is the
comprehend
product of. Right. Not what you're saying is, and what I'm saying is that knowledge is the product of some process, but it's not equivalent to the process itself.
Yes.
I wish you could see my screen, Jay, because I could explain it to you very simply what I'm saying about knowledge.
We're gonna have this. Yeah, we're gonna have to have this conversation off air.
And I'm tapping out.
Good. I mean,
I mean, to me, it's an interesting conversation. I don't have a dog in the fight either way, but I can see, I can see what Immutable's saying, and I can see what you're saying as well, Speed. So, but yeah, I would have to know more about your position because again, I'm coming in late, and I didn't watch the majority of this, so I don't have all the particulars of this particular conversation to go on.
Yeah, I think I can. I think I can lay it out pretty carefully if you just accept me on my word and listen to what I'm saying. I think you would easily understand it. It's pretty simple. It's a really flattened, super naturalist, super physicalist position that I come from, right? And I call it scientism. And that's in trying to explain it to people is really difficult for some reason. It really surprises me. And I've thought in these terms for so many years that it probably leaving a few steps out, right?
Well,
I just heard Immutable in the background, like, what the?
I don't think there's anything wrong with the concept, like in principle. I think the issue is in the coherency of the concept itself.
It's very coherent, highly coherent. That's
to you only.
Really not.
Yeah, if I'm the only one that understands it, obviously I'm the only one that's going to see the coherence, right?
Okay,
That doesn't make
It's a delusion.
Hey, Immutable. The definition that I just grabbed from Wikipedia and put in the side chat, do you
God damn it.
consider that to be more coherent? Or is
For
it
scientism?
more coherent with speed, but not coherent ultimately?
That's not conventional, like scientism. And if that's a form of scientism you want to define, I accept that. But
yeah,
I was just wondering what you thought about that definition.
I like that definition.
Well, that definition, yeah, that would be what scientism is. It's still
Except the only thing I'd push back on is the use of the only there, only proper elements in any philosophical or other inquiry, because with philosophy you're going to naturally build structure on top of structure on top of structure, and you're going to be far away from basically a scientific application. So only would be. I don't like only all words.
So
all that
So you're
shit.
talking about building things within the boundaries of certain structures, or the boundaries of a particular paradigm of scientism. So scientism builds upon something within the set lane of what scientism entails. Would that be correct?
Scientism would take science and build up into toward philosophy. In other words, it's constructive rather than reductive, which is something I've also been misunderstood as saying. Basically, instead of reducing a thing, okay, when you have a reductive system, you can construct back upward to all these other systems, right? And in the process, you clarify. I mean, you come up with really tight definitions of things, and I like that about it. So I do it constructively.
Yeah, but deductive. Okay. Yeah, never mind. Not gonna go there.
Yeah, trust me,
not
you're
gonna do
gonna
it.
have fun wrestling the monkey too.
Not gonna do it.
Bum,
Not
bum,
gonna
bum.
say it. But
Now we've gone 2 hours and 5 minutes. So do you think we want to kill this thing?
Well, we still got to do the
Kill it
hot
with-
spring paper. Apparently, somebody
kill
forgot
it.
about
Kill,
that.
kill it with fire. Kill it with fire.
Should we kill it?
I
Let's
think
kill it.
we've run out of steam on the subject.
What's that?
I think we've run out of steam on this subject.
Okay, so I'm going to end the broadcast.
Well, I haven't. I just got here.
Thank you for all those who
I'm just-
were listening in.
Well, you know, if we're going to go in the back room and continue this discussion, I would like it to be recorded. So if you guys want to keep talking and keep discussing this, that's fine. But I'm kind of out of it. So,
Yeah, that's fine.
you guys want to keep going?
It's not like something that can't be repeated later.
Yeah. Okay.
If you want to tap out of it and give your brain a rest on it, then yeah, it's not like something that can't be approached again.
Yeah, or if you guys want to continue this conversation among yourselves without me, that's fine. We can do that.
Yeah, either way. Yeah, it's your channel. It's your channel, Speed.
Yeah, go for it, guys. Talk.
Yep.
Gentlemen,
This
y'all
is-
have
this
a
is-
great evening.
Talk until you're done talking, and I'll keep an eye on the screen.
I am done talking.
Okay.
I must take my leave.
Leo is done talking. I didn't think that was even fucking possible.
Yeah.
And I'm done.
Sorry.
Unless
Sorry, Leo. It was there.
I know.
I went for it.
I'm done unless I'm pretty much done unless Jay wants to talk or whatever.
I'm outie 5,000.
I mean, whoever's around off air, that's fine. If not, I'm fine too. I can always go live on my computer and I can bitch about praise.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna get going.
Okay, guys. We're ending the broadcast. Goodbye, cruel world.